My name is OFORI-ATTA. I am the sound recorder and mixer for The Cleaner. It was a tough one initially because it was just straight up mixing the audio of ST being the cleaner and then, just him as an actor. But then we discussed on, I believe, the day of the release that how can we really emphasize the cleaner as the Holy Spirit. So we added a lot of reverb in terms of creating that space, his omnipresence, and then adding effects like the wind to show his movement. So to be honest, it was very simple, but I believe that simple is what makes things great at the end of the day. So we thank God for that, and we thank God for that discussion. If not, it would have been a very, very simple and empty movie in that. But we're glad to be able to show the Holy Spirit in that way. So yeah. I think initially the first interaction between the cleaner and Joy, because we initially had two different shots and trying to link them together, and we realized some audio bits were missing or some audio bits were not necessarily matching, and having to make everything the same volume, because even though conversations tend to different volume, one thing that you need to be able to make consistent in a film, especially with conversations, is ensuring that they're on the same level, not that one person dips halfway through the conversation and another increases. So one thing people don't know is that initially in the first conversation, I allowed Joy to be a bit louder than the cleaner to basically show how she wanted to control the conversation. Then in the second part of the conversation, the cleaner's louder than Joy to show that he started to control the conversation. So stuff like that, trying to match that as well, even though sometimes when it's recording, it's not necessarily perfect. But yeah, that was probably the hardest technical thing. Whew. The set itself, plumbing, toilet, fireworks, cars, people speaking, the sound of the floorboards, people walking around, the echo itself were all different things that we had to watch out for. So when it comes to sound, there's so many things to watch out for. And I think then the last thing probably being the microphones itself kind of acting up and limited resources, but at least we were able to necessarily sort that out. But yeah, there was a lot of things to watch out for. That Friday morning of when it was coming out, I think that conversation with Daniel and then adding PANASHE into the conversation was really, really pivotal to what we see as the cleaner today. So I thank God for last minute things, but hopefully would like to avoid them in the future. But these are the things that make great films at the end of the day, so. So there is the one scene where you see the camera cut between from, I believe, the therapist to Joy, and then the cleaner's not there in the seat anymore. So that bit of silence there kind of just allows people to think, okay, is he still there? Is he not there? And I think just to know, obviously, what we know about the Holy Spirit as always being present. So even if you can't see him, he is there. And I think that silence and that thought of him not actually being there, I believe it comes from more of the perspective of the therapist more than Joy's perspective, but also Joy realizing, oh my gosh, wait, who have I been talking to this whole time, or is he actually still there? But yeah, that was the time that we probably used silence. Everything else was very, very busy, but that was the time that had the least things inside. When it came to the end with the poem by ST, I think it was really important to emphasize his role, as in the Holy Spirit, the helper. So I added some reverb onto it and then adding the wind effect again. So adding those two things really just emphasized who he was and allowing people maybe that don't necessarily know who the Holy Spirit is to really understand who is the Holy Spirit and, who was the cleaner at the end of the day. And I think that allows them in. Sometimes you don't want to give those things away, but I think it's important for an audience that don't understand that to actually be able to capture that. So those were the main like layered elements. Nothing too much, a few like bits and pieces here that maybe was necessary, like the tissue pulling, that was something that was done in post-production because you couldn't hear it originally. Stuff like the sweeping and like the sound of the clock ticking when he moves away and stuff like that. So yeah, those were little bits here and there that just added a little bit to the film. So it's quite good. Originally, I didn't record it, so there was a lot of hissing in, so it means that technically the game was just all the way up, which means the audio was terrible. But I think I came from a more holistic perspective because of actually being there and understanding what PANASHE and Daniel wanted to capture, so I could understand, okay, this is how they probably want the conversation to go, this is how they want things to come in and stuff like that. So I think being on set and actually recording everything allowed me to understand like even the pain and the joys of actually doing it. Initially, I can't lie, I didn't enjoy mixing the first one. I desperately hated it. But the second time, as much as it was painful to get through things, I began to enjoy it when it started to come to its last stages, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be amazing type of thing. And I think now looking back on it, there's so much we can work on and so much I can work on and so much I can improve on, but it allows me to see it as a big stepping stone to greater things, so yeah. Number one is just to sit down and have a conversation with either the directors and just to say, like, what do you want to see and what is it that you want to hear? What is the most important aspects for you from the beginning? Involving them in the process throughout. And I think just learning more about my craft and understanding how can I perfect things to, prevent having to switch in certain things that can make things better. But yeah, I think involving them in the process throughout, we could have probably done even more, included more things, except from obviously having that final call. If I had calls with them earlier on, being able to liaise throughout with different people, saying, okay, this is how it sounds, would you like something different, and all of these different things. So working together is a massive thing I think I need to definitely improve on next time. Allow the Holy Spirit in, allow him to do the work. I mean, for example, he's the cleaner. If she said no, the cleaner probably would have left her, because you have to understand that the Holy Spirit forces nobody, God forces nobody. But because she accepted and allowed him in, the Holy Spirit was able to do his work. So allow the Holy Spirit in, I think is so important. Just saying yes at the end of the day can do so much. So don't reject the Holy Spirit, accept him. I'm Oluwaseun, and this has been Behind BKS.